Hi friends, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Caitlin and I like to film eyeshadow palette, ranking and review videos, as well as the occasional other content sprinkled in. So if you like indie makeup, if you like eyeshadow palettes, if you like me, I highly recommend that you hit that subscribe button because I post 2 videos every single week, sort of. And for those of you that are not new here, my face is happy that you are seeing it again. And I am so excited for today's video. I feel like I say that a lot, but I really am excited for today's video. I had this idea back in April of this year. I went on this like haunted tour when I was in Savannah, Georgia, and I thought it would be really cool to do like a Bailey Sarian style video, but instead of doing true crime, I'll leave that to my queen. I will do a like a haunting, like talk about like something spooky, you know, it doesn't have to be a haunting. So I'm open to title suggestions because it could be like anything like weird, spooky, mystical type of thing. So like for this one, obviously we're going to talk about, a ghost town and a haunting, and hauntings, I should say. But yeah. Anyways, I just think it would be really fun. So I want to try it. I hope you're all interested in this. Let me know in the comments down below. I'm also going to ask you to let me know what you think about this lighting change. I'm trying to have natural light come in. I'm obviously not going to be able to maintain that every time because sometimes I have to film at night. But I also pushed my lights further back so they're not as bright so that this is more of like a realistic setting. I don't know. Let me know. But anyways, I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet because we have a long one today. So let's go ahead and get on into it. Editing me here, realized I didn't put in any trigger warnings and I feel like probably should have some. So obviously we are talking about haunting, so there will be discussion of death, specifically suicide is mentioned. There is also mention of, like, very brief mention of, you know, brothels and things of that nature. Some themes of racism do come through, so if any of those things are triggering for you or just something that you can't handle, definitely don't watch the rest of this video. Yeah. Okay, so I felt like my last Get Ready With Me that I posted was like really chaotic because I was talking about the products that I was using as I was using them, and it was too much. But there is one product that I want to mention that I am going to use today because this is the product that made me feel like I should do this video. Like this is because like I said, I had the idea in April. I just never got around to it. And I actually had the idea to do this exact story back in April because this is a place like kind of close to where I live that is notoriously haunted. So I thought it would be fun to like do some investigation, research into it, my brain. Anyways, into it. And anyways, just fell off to the wayside, did other videos, whatever. It just never happened. But then the palette that I'm going to be using today is the Nomad Cosmetics Ghost Town USA palette. And as soon as I'm done doing this, I will show you what that palette looks like. But the reason I wanted to just mention this is because 1, I feel like it ties in. 2, I'm like low-key, and by low-key I mean high-key at eyeshadow palette review and ranking channel. So I feel like I'm just always with these going to try and tie them into like a palette that I have. It won't necessarily always be a new or newer palette, but anywho's. Ghost Town USA. This is the newest palette from Nomad Cosmetics. I did purchase this palette myself. It has a very like neutral, but like also you got some greens and blues and like muted color story. So this is based on ghost towns across the US. If you are not familiar with what a ghost town is a place that had some sort of boom, typically around like, I don't know what like period that would be. I think we're talking like early, what is that? I always get confused on the centuries, right? Is it early 19th century, the like 1900s? I feel like 1800s, whatever. In that time frame, these towns that were really popular for like mining or like whatever other they were producing, but I think typically like they had like mining towns, and then when that sort of died out, these towns, just people left and they abandoned them. And so a ghost town is a town that was once very popular but has now been abandoned, and it is typically from that time period, and it is like just empty. It's a ghost town. There's nobody lives there. The buildings are still standing, and it's very creepy and spooky ooky. So I thought it was really cool that this launch had that. When they launched it, I was really excited because there is a ghost town. Well, there's a lot. So in Arizona, we have almost 300 ghost towns, which is a lot because, you know, we the wild, wild west, baby. So when they launched it, I was like, oh my gosh. The one that came to mind is Jerome, Arizona, which is, obviously you can see from the title what we're going to be talking about today. But Jerome, Arizona is the only living ghost town, I think, or one of the only. I should say one of. There's probably another one or two. But it's one of the only living ghost towns that I can recall from my research. Anyways, a living ghost town means that there is a populace that currently lives there. And so Jerome, Arizona is really cool because it's like half of these like abandoned buildings, some of those buildings that have been renovated and turned into something new. Some of it is like just like restored. But it's like you have like kind of this like rundown abandoned aspect in the middle of these like running restaurants and hotels and things like that. It's a really cool place to go if you ever get a chance. I definitely recommend it. Another cool ghost town, just as a side note, another cool ghost town in Arizona is actually the city of Tombstone. Tombstone. Oh my gosh. Why can't I speak? Is the city of Tombstone, Arizona. That's going to be our most popular ghost town, I feel like, that we have here. Obviously, there was the Tombstone movie. Tombstone is a really cool place to go as well. Lots of touristy stuff in both cities for sure. But I feel like people tend to know about and go to Tombstone the most. And I feel like Jerome, Arizona is slightly less known. Anyways, Jerome was not mentioned in this palette. So I felt like inspired to do this video to be like, I must share with the people what Jerome, Arizona is all about. So anyways, we're just going to do the makeup look and we're going to get started. So the reason that I wanted to pick Jerome is because it's also notoriously haunted. I think you could find lots of stuff about Jerome being haunted. I will put my like the websites and books that I read a book, the book, and then the websites that I read to put this together. I'll put that in the description box if you're curious to discuss the book. The book I read is called Haunted Jerome, and I forget the author's name, so that'll be in the description box. But anyways, really cool book, lots of information in there. I only put like a very small fraction of what they talk about in the book in this video today. So definitely check that book out if you're curious, but they had a lot of info in there. So this is for you, those of you that are maybe familiar with Arizona's bigger cities, but not necessarily familiar with where Jerome is located. Jerome is between Flagstaff and Prescott. Flagstaff, you're going to have be in northern Arizona. Prescott's a little bit like northern east Arizona, right? Yeah. And so it's situated in kind of the middle of them, and it's about 20 miles from Sedona, Arizona. I feel like that's really popular with people. It's all the red rocks, things like that. So it's more northern Arizona, to Phoenix, I should say. To those of you, that still might be south, but to me, northern Arizona, because I'm lower in the Arizona. Anyways, that's for those of you that know that. If you don't know that, northern Arizona is all you really need to take away for where this is happening. And the town of Jerome is situated on a hill. Like it's like on a hill. I'll try to remember to put a picture here to give you how it looks, but it's like literally situated on a hill. It's kind of weird. Most towns not truly situated on top of a hill, but that's the reason that a lot of people think that the buildings have ended up with so much structural damage is because of how it was built on top of this hill. So anyways, I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was interesting. I don't know. I'm gonna need some practice at these kinds of videos because talking and doing my makeup at the same time is like kind of hard. I'm not good at it. Founded in 1876, Jerome was one of the largest copper mines in the West.
And it had the nickname the $1 Billion Copper Camp. At the time, it was considered one of the richest cities in the United States, and this wasn't in 1876. I think it was around I don't know. I know 1903, lots of stuff was happening. So like 1876 was when it was founded. Early 1900s is when it got to a population of about 15,000 people, which is kind of crazy to think about that being one of the like bigger cities in Arizona, when now Phoenix has something like, I want to say it's like 5 million people. Anyways, so 15,000, it was the second biggest city in Arizona. And I think that was around that 1903 time when there was like lots of stuff happening in the city. In the early 1950s, the mines closed down and the population of Jerome got all the way down to about 100 people, which is wild. That's like a perfect example of a ghost town, right? There was 15,000 people there, and then it got all the way down to just 100 people left. Could you imagine being one of those 100 people? Spooky. I will say I kind of miss my bright lights because I feel like I can't really see if this looks good or not. As of 2021, per Google, so I'm not going to link that resource because I literally just Googled it. But per Google, the city of Jerome had a population of about 467 people. So we went up from 100, but still not back to the 15,000. Obviously, still constitutes a ghost town because we're still, the population is still lower. But it's a living ghost town because 467 people is a decent size. I mean, it's a small city, but like that's a decent number of people. So I kind of mentioned this earlier, but now the city of Jerome has hotels and restaurants that are in buildings that have been restored and are, functioning, running businesses that you can go visit if you go visit there. And then there are also buildings that have been left to ruin, like naturally, like they're just deteriorating. Nobody's fixing them up. Nobody's taking care of them. So that's what I think makes the city so cool, is because you have like the mix of that in this city, town, whatever you want to call it, if you were to go visit. So when I said 1903 earlier, it's because in 1903, the city of Jerome got the nickname the wickedest town in the West because lots of debauchery was occurring. So they had a huge number of brothels, saloons, opium dens, just all sorts of stuff happening. I think it's believed that because the mining, it was the $1 billion copper camp. So there's lots of miners that were there that were working the copper mines, and there was no OSHA, there were no safety regulations. Their lives were really hard. They worked really long hours for no pay, dangerous conditions, getting hurt, injured. We're going to talk about this more, but obviously just living really difficult lives. And so I think there's the belief that the brothels and opium dens and the saloons all existed because they needed some sort of escape, right? So that's why there were so many of them. And then, so it was called the wickedest town in the West. It's believed that the town ends up having, and I'm not going to talk about the whole history. That's what I'm saying. I can only fit such a small fraction of this this whole story into this video because I want to focus mainly on the hauntings, but it's a really unique history if you want to go explore it more. Like I said, that book gets into it, and then I'll link those links as well. But anyways, there was quite a few fires that the town ended up having, and people at the time believed that that was like the town's punishment for all of the debauchery that was occurring, the bad behaviors. So I wanted to read an excerpt from the book Haunted Jerome, and it's actually by Patricia Jacobson and Midge Stober, I think is how you say their names. I wanted to read this excerpt from the book because I really liked the way they wrote it, and I think it helps it better illustrates the point that I was just trying to make. So, during its heyday, people in Jerome succumbed to mining accidents and gunfights, overdosed on opium, and suffered many other unnatural events. Many of Jerome's sporting ladies met disastrous ends by way of murder. With its hard-earned past, it comes as no surprise that Jerome is filled with wandering spirits. However, there was blood on the land here before the mining days. Native Americans and Spanish conquistadors had already discovered the rich earth of Jerome's mountaintop locale. So, I just felt like that was like a really good way to sum up, right? Like there's like lots of bad stuff happening, lots of people having like really hard lives at the time and dying in really tragic ways. So of course that breeds the opportunity for ghosts. If you believe in ghosts, I know some of you might not, but the reason I like talking about ghost stories and the like history behind it is because I just think it's interesting. It's an interesting way to learn about history, I feel like, or the dark side of history, so to speak. So as Jerome got bigger, the mining got bigger, there was of course mining accidents. Like I said, there's no safety regulations. They don't really know what they were doing at the time. So Jerome had tons of mining accidents, fires that I mentioned. Obviously, we're talking early 1900s, so flu epidemics. We can all relate, I think, now to what that was probably like. Obviously not, because we have more technology, but like we can kind of relate. And then the homicides that the excerpt that I just read alluded to. So lots of the way they phrased it, unnatural events happening. So I may have misjudged how long it would take me to do my makeup. So I probably could have put more stuff in here, but whatever. The research is done now, so here we go. But I want to switch gears. I want to switch gears to talking about a couple of the establishments that are there now that have in Jerome, obviously, but that have some spooky tales attached to them. So I want to get into like what's haunted, but before we do that, I just want to make sure we've got the general gist of what was happening when this was a booming town before it turned into a ghost town. And that was that people were living hard lives, lots of, the sporting ladies. I like that phrase, but we had a lot of the brothels, the saloons, the opium dens, things like that. So that's where we were at. So now switching gears to talk about like these specific places. So there's a restaurant called The Haunted Hamburger, which I love that name. So of course I had to talk about them. But the story behind the naming of the restaurant actually comes from the restaurant. The establishment was run down and in need of repairs. And abandoned, obviously. And so Michelle and Eric Jurison, I think is how you say their names, bought the restaurant. And if you're familiar, if you're somebody who consumes a lot of ghosty content, I think you know that when you start repairing or restoring or doing any sort of renovating of a place that is haunted, the ghosts come out, right? Like that's always, right? That's every scary movie. I mean, if you've ever seen a scary movie, they're renovating an old house and the ghosts come out. Like that's kind of the gist. So anyways, they're doing these renovations and it's believed that the spirits are possibly frustrated tradesmen, like the spirits that inhabit the haunted hamburger. They believe that they're frustrated tradesmen of the past. So, it makes more sense in a second, but the reason that it's believed that it's the frustrated tradesmen is because there were a lot of tools that were being taken and like just go missing during the renovation. Specifically hammers. Like hammers would just be gone. And then all of a sudden they'd show up in like random places. Like I think it was like days later. Like it wasn't like immediate where you could go, oh, I misplaced that. It's like the hammers, they couldn't find them, and then all of a sudden they'd show back up in this like totally out of the box. So during this renovation that they were doing, 3 hammers went missing, and the owners, Michelle and Eric, spoke to the prior owner of the establishment. So they were just talking to him, and I don't know the context or why, but he was the one who brought up that and asked them if how the renovations were going. And he said, be careful they like to take hammers, talking about the ghosts. And he's like, have you met the ghosts yet? They like to take hammers, basically, was what he said to them. And so they were like, what? So it was like a known thing that these ghosts like to take hammers. So I think that's why everybody thinks that they're these frustrated tradesmen, because I guess who else would want a hammer? I don't know. I'm not, I think that's the logic behind that. But so other examples of paranormal activity that occurred in the haunted hamburger were like doors slamming in people's faces, cans just, right, it's a restaurant, so like cans just flying off the shelves, hot water being turned on in the middle of the night, very distinct smells, and then some patrons of the restaurant, so like customers that have gone there, have reported the vague image of a woman in photographs that they take. Like, so they're at the restaurant, they take a picture, and then there's like the vague image of a woman in the background of the pictures, which would creep me out so bad. If that happened to me, I would be like, what? But anyways, so that's kind of the tale of the haunted hamburger. I wanted to mention that one, because I love the name. Two, I just thought the hammers was really funny. I don't know why. But like, what a random, like they were so focused on hammers. I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, maybe if we learn a story eventually about that makes that not funny, then it's less funny. But as of right now, in this moment, it's funny to me. Next up, this was actually the part of Jerome that I wanted to talk about. When I was thinking of the video initially, like I said, back in April, I was like, I'm going to talk about the Jerome Grand Hotel because it's super haunted. It's like a very famous haunted place in Arizona. And I was like, I'm going to talk about it. Like, that's what I want to do the video on. So then obviously the ghost town concept presented itself. So I was like, okay, we'll talk about a little bit of the history of the ghost town. I don't feel like Jerome had any of the big, like, names. That's why I said, like, Tombstone's the famous ghost town. Like, Jerome's now famous more for the haunting than, like, I mean, obviously it sounded like, you know, they had some stuff going on back in the early 1900s when they got they're the wickedest town in the West name, but there's not like you don't have like Stagecoach Mary or Wyatt Earp or like, I don't know, any of those big names. You don't have them in there. So the Jerome Grand Hotel, you can stay there now. It's a hotel. So you can rent a room and you can stay there. And I should probably do my brows and not try and talk at the same time. So the hotel was originally built in 1926. It was the town's first hospital. So, or not first. Did I say first? Oh my gosh. It was the town's fourth hospital. Those the two F numbers confusing to me. It was the town's fourth hospital. But you're like, okay. So I'm going to skip ahead for a second. We're going to come back to this. But I saw like Mikey do a video about the Jerome Grand Hotel forever ago. And it was like her first one. I think she did another one recently. But she was saying like there was like 9,000 people that died there. And I was like, okay, yeah, 9,000 people died there. Sure. You know, whatever. Like I just felt like it was an exaggeration. But then as I was reading about it and I saw, you know, like was just reading about the history, the mining situation, and just like given all that context, I was like, oh, it was like a hospital in a mining town. And this hospital was specifically for sick and injured miners. So you're like, maybe 9,000 isn't that high of a number. I'll get back to the specifics, but I just wanted to highlight that because like when I first heard that, I was like, yeah, okay. And then I read it and I was like, read more and learned more. And I was like, maybe that is true. But anyways, the hospital was built in 1926, operational until 1950. So 24 years, 9,000 deaths spanning 24 years is like, basically works out to like, I think like one death a day, if I remember reading that correctly. Phelps Dodge Mining Company was who owned the hospital, and they would hire caretakers to take care of the property even once it was shut down as a hospital. And that was just to keep it occupied and safe from vandalism. And again, I'm trying to talk and do my brows at the same time. Okay, so I think I left off saying that they would hire caretakers to keep it occupied and make sure, like, to just prevent vandalism. So the last caretaker did commit suicide in the 1980s. And at that point, the place was just boarded up and watched by police. So that was the last caretaker that they had, before obviously it was bought and turned into a hotel. But anywho, this is definitely giving American Horror Story hotel vibes, right? Like buying a hotel. Although in hotel, it was already a hotel. That might be a fun next one to do, because isn't that based on like a real hotel in LA? I don't know. Anyways, leave comments down below if you have ideas for the next one, because I want to use the haunted palette from Gourmand Girls. I said I wasn't going to get off track, but we just did. Okay, so back to the story. So it was boarded up, watched over by police, and then in 1994 was when it was purchased and turned into a hotel. So it been a hotel for a minute. So as I was saying earlier, it is reported that 9,000 people died during the 24-year run of the hospital. Obviously, then you have the caretaker that committed suicide in the 80s. So the 9,000 is like roughly estimated while it was the hospital. Obviously, like I said, the caretaker that committed suicide in the 80s. And then it's also believed that there have been other suicides and possible murder that has occurred at this location, what is now the hotel, formerly the hospital. So some of those, I think, suicides and potential murder were while it was running as a hospital. Some of them are more recent, but yeah, anyways. Mostly what you have going on there are these really sick and injured miners, because there were no safety regulations, nothing. So the believed, like, I don't think it was ruled a murder. I think it was ruled as not a suicide. I don't know what it was ruled. Anyways, well, let's just talk about it. So Claude Harvey was killed April 3rd, 1935, and his head was caught underneath a hospital elevator. So, like, not to get graphic, but just wanted to explain. But a lot of people believe that Claude was actually killed somewhere else and then brought to the hospital, put under the elevator to, like, hide evidence. So, like, it kind of looks like it was an accident, like he got his head caught and then it fell on him. But then people think, no, he was actually killed somewhere else, and that was just done to cover up the murder, or help cover up the murder. Of some of the suicides, so 2 different maintenance men have hanged themselves in the boiler room, which feels weirdly coincidental. But anyway, so the 2 maintenance men have hanged themselves in the boiler room. One of them did so in 1980 after the hospital had been abandoned. I believe that's the caretaker that we were talking about before. And then when the hotel reopened, so like when they bought it in 1994, so obviously that happened in 1980, hospitals purchased 1994, and the rope that the man had hanged himself with was still in the boiler room, which I feel like if you're the owner walking into that would feel very ominous and creepy and scary. And I'd be like, I am in the beginning of a scary movie. Like, that's the horror movie has begun, would be how I would feel if I saw that. And also, like, I guess if somebody hung themselves, you don't really need evidence, but I would just assume that that's something that police would have taken, but whatever, what do I know? At one point, and I don't have the year on this, but at one point there was a woman named Gerthy that jumped to her death from the 3rd floor for an unknown reason. And then a man in a wheelchair fell from his death from one of the upper balconies, and some believe it was a suicide attempt. That isn't confirmed. So it's possible that he fell and it was an accident, but it's listed as one of the potential suicides that had occurred at the place. And then this next death I want to talk about, it didn't occur on the actual hospital grounds, but I feel like it really gets at the heart of just how crappy the miners were treated, and just some of the bad juju that could surround this place because of this type of thing. So there was a man named Juan, and he was a miner, and his legs were burned off in a they were burned off in the smelter, but is it like a smeltering or a smeltering accident? I'm not sure what the actual term was. So anyways, to be honest, I didn't know what the term was because I'd never heard of a smelter before. I didn't know what that was. So a smelter is, again, I use Google for this, but a smelter is a machine that takes metal out of rock. So it's, if you're mining, it's taking the copper. In this situation, I'm assuming copper because this was like the big copper area, but it's taking essentially copper out of a rock or whatever metal out of the rock. So it gets really hot. But anyway, so his legs were burned off in that accident, which sounds awful. So anyways, Juan lived through that accident and was taken to the hospital. This hospital, I don't know if I remember the name of the hospital, but the hospital that turned into the hotel. The hospital kicked him out. Like they sent him on his way before he had time to heal. And I guess this was a really common practice of the hospital at the time. If the miner wasn't believed to really make a full recovery, I guess it wasn't worth because the hospital is owned by the mining company. Let's keep that in mind. So they didn't want to pay for their care if they weren't going to be able to get back to like a workable function, which is just gross. But anyway, so there was a doctor there that basically gave this guy this like big supply or solid supply of morphine and was like, take extra if it gets really bad. So, I mean, I feel like he was kind of telling him like, it was sort of like a physician-assisted suicide without being that is kind of what it feels like to me. Like, I feel like that's kind of what the doctor is getting at, right? Like a hint, nudge, nudge, if your pain gets really severe. So the doctor actually, after this happened, he quit the hospital, working at the hospital, because he was just like so horrified by like the treatment of these people and the fact that like this guy was still needed to heal and his wounds were still, anyways, burns can get really infected and things like that. So I'm sure this doctor was just like horrified by this treatment of this man, and it had happened multiple times. So I'm guessing this was just like the straw that broke the camel's back, or it was this particular doctor's first time. That I don't know the extent of all of that, but anyways, doctor quit. After this, like I said, the hospital withheld care from miners if it was believed that the miners were never going to be able to return to a working status. Like, it wasn't, I'm assuming their thought process was that it wasn't profitable to them because it's the mining company that owns the hospital. But they did this in particular to miners that were Mexican, because the story is set in America, and it wouldn't be a story set in America if we didn't have racism in it, right? So the racism and corporate greed, if we're being honest, I feel like that those are just the foundation on which all of our historical stories sit. But anyways, Juan did end up overdosing on the morphine at home. So he didn't die, like I said, on the hospital grounds. But I just feel like there was probably plenty of people that did die on the hospital grounds that we just don't really know about. But for that reason of like withholding care, not doing that because they wanted to make more money. That's just some history of the hotel, specifically what happened at the hotel, on the hotel grounds, or whatever. So going back to kind of present day to get back into the hauntings, one of the things that the hotel does is they have a guest book that guests can write all of the like spooky things they've experienced. So you can, read all of the things that other people have experienced during their stays there. And then there were actually so many different paranormal experiences that the Haunted Jerome book actually had to put like different like they split it up by floor, basically, to go over like one chapter on each floor to talk about the hauntings per floor. I'm not going to obviously cover every single, like I said, we're talking about such a small fraction of Jerome and the history and the ghostly stuff. But I did just want to mention that there's a lot of activity and that happened there. So the particular stories that I picked for today were the ones that I felt like gave me the biggest, like, just like creeped me out, or I felt tied to like some of the stuff we talked about earlier with the hospital, and seem not more legit, but like just seem pretty wild. So I just wanted to focus on those. Obviously there might be some more if you want to learn more, like I said, I highly recommend that book. It was really good. So according to the book Haunted Jerome, if you want a bigger chance of like a paranormal experience, you should stay at the Jerome Grand Hotel. You should stay at room 32. That room is alleged to have the highest rate of spiritual activity and be like the most haunted room. And I can't remember, like I said, I didn't watch Mikey's new video, but I can't remember if she stayed. Now that I've done all this research, I might go watch her newest one, because I think I don't know if they stayed in room 32, but most of the stories that I found interesting came from former employees of the hotel, which, you know, maybe they embellish the stories to like get more people to stay there. I don't know, but I also feel like as an employee, you're probably more likely to see some weird stuff because you're there more often than a guest is, right? Like if you're there for like a couple days, you might not see anything, but if you work there for years, you're probably going to see some stuff, you know? So one of the employees one time, she was going to the bathroom and she put her cigarette on the sink, because I guess the bathroom, it's like a really tiny bathroom, so like it's like sink toilet, like right up against each other. So she like sets her cigarette on the sink, and she said the cigarette like literally levitated and then went back down, and it freaked her out so bad that she like ran out of the bathroom, didn't look back, and yeah, same. I probably would have done the exact same thing. And then there was a housekeeper that was cleaning room 32, and she felt a like shove to the back of her shoulder, you know, like somebody like playfully like pushing you, although I don't think it was playful, but she felt like a light shove to the back of her shoulder while she was checking under the bed. So she's like under the bed, somebody pushes on her shoulder, and so she gets up, goes to the other side of the bed to look under to see if anything's under there. And then she said that's when she felt like a harder shove, like a really hard push to her shoulder. And so she was telling the story to another employee, and they looked at her back and they said that there was an imprint of a hand on her shoulder. Like they could see where she was touched and somebody had shoved her, and there was nobody in the room with her. Like she was cleaning the room by herself. Have any of you ever worked at a haunted place or lived in a haunted place? I'd love to hear down below, because if that happened to me, if I was working and that happened to me, I'm gone. I am giving my 2 weeks notice, but you're never actually going to see me again. Like I would be so scared. I love like learning about spooky things. I don't want to live it. So, yeah. I don't even know. I was telling my husband all of these like stories, and he was like, "We should go." I was like, oh. Like maybe like I'm down to go visit Jerome. It's really, like I said, it's a really cool place, but I don't know if I want to stay in the haunted hotel. I'd be so scared I'd be picking something back like up to like come back home with me. But anyways, another housekeeper was cleaning, and this might be the same housekeeper, I can't remember, but anyways, another story with a housekeeper. She was cleaning a room, and she needed a tablecloth, and so she went to the workstation that's on the third floor to get a tablecloth for I don't know, whatever room she was cleaning. And she said when she walked in, so she walks into the workstation on the third floor. When you walk in, there's like an antique mirror that's like propped up against a wall. And so she said she could see something like dark and swaying in the mirror. And so she like walks up to get like a closer look at it. And she looks directly in the mirror, and instead of seeing her own face, she sees the face of a man that is like purple, black, and blue, like just so bruised and like swollen, and just like he looked like he had been like just had the bejesus beat out of him, basically, like just really, really beaten. And she said that like, so in addition to the bruises, she said that his eyes were red and poking out of his face, and she thought it was a trick. So she starts looking for something behind the mirror, like a projector, something that's like reflecting this. Like she just thought it was like a prank or somebody like set it up to do something, but she couldn't find anything to like show this face in the mirror. She said the next day she was cleaning a large mirror, now on the second floor. So she's on a different floor, cleaning a different mirror, but she's cleaning this large mirror on the second floor. That same face she saw in the workroom, she now sees in this mirror. And again, it's just the face. It's not the body. It's just the head. And then she said, and this is why I'm scared to ever go to the hotel, but she said this spirit actually followed her home. And she started like seeing it in her home, like this same spirit reflection, like man's beaten face with the eyes. Like she just kept seeing it. And She said she had to have her house blessed 3 times before it was no longer in her home. And so then spirit occurrences stopped. And I don't know, I can't she might have had other stuff. The focus of the story was like his face in the mirror, but she might have had other spiritual occurrences, because she said no spiritual occurrences happened after she blessed her house 3 times. So he might have been, this ghost in theory might have been doing other things. But anyways, gone from her house. She said a couple months later, there's another coworker that screamed while they're working. And so she, runs to go check on them to see what's happening because they're screaming, right? And the coworker described seeing a face in the mirror. And she described the exact face that this other housekeeper had been seeing, and like a few months back. And so the employees were later on talking about Claude Harvey, and the housekeeper believes that that is the face that she saw. So Claude Harvey, who the elevator crushed his head when it was stuck under it. So anyway, she's pretty sure it's him, which, I mean, if you think about it, his face is super bruised. His eyes are like, popping out, not to get gruesome, but I mean, it sounds believable to me. That's why I wanted to mention his story specifically. Okay, so this next story I thought was particularly cuckoo bananas. Like, I don't know. This one was really like, what? When I read it, this was one of the ones that I told my husband, like, about, like, as I was reading the book, I was like, oh my gosh, he's like trying to sleep. And I'm like, you gotta listen to this. But anyways, so this is the same housekeeper from the last story. That's why I'm like, not sure. Are these all? I can't remember if these are all hers or somebody else's. But anyways, this same one from the last story with Claude. But she was cleaning room 38 now. So not 32, but 38. And she was getting ready to clean the room, I should say. So she wasn't quite cleaning it yet, but she's like kind of walking around, seeing, like, trying to make her game plan on what she wants to tackle first. And she is in room 38, has the door open, sees a man walking by, and he has jeans, a t-shirt, and a hat on. And I think there, like, wasn't supposed to be any guests. I can't remember what it was, but him walking by was, like, strange to her. So I don't know if, like, all the guests on that floor were supposed to be checked out, or if it was like a slow season and they just knew they didn't have any guests. Anyways, so this man walks by, and he walks into room 37A. And that's 2 doors down from her. So she's 38. So, right, 37B, 37A. So he walks into room 37A. So she goes out of the room to, like, go follow him to see if he needed anything. Because, like I said, I don't know if maybe... that's what makes me think that if everybody was checked out. So she's thinking... or, I don't know, I just stayed somewhere recently where every time we saw the housekeeper, they're like, do you guys need anything? Do you guys need anything? So maybe... It wasn't even that, but she just saw somebody and went, oh, let me just check and see if he needs towels or sheets or whatever. So she goes to follow him. She literally is like, so he's walking by, she comes out, he's gone into this room, so she goes into that room, and then nobody's there when she gets in there. So it's like, think of how long, like, that wouldn't have taken that long. Like, there's no way, and it's like a hallway, like, that she would have seen him, right? Like, even if he had walked in, walked out, she would have passed him in the hallway. So nobody's in 37A. And there's no way to exit that room besides the door that she came in. And like I said, not enough time for him to leave. So pretty crazy. So then I think it was like 2 weeks later, the housekeeper was working on a room in the, and there's multiple housekeepers. I just call her the housekeeper because it is the main one of the story. But anyways, so she's working on a room in the second floor, or on the second floor. I don't know why I keep confusing in and on, but here we are. Anyways, so she's working in a room on the second floor. She said that a coworker yelled that, I don't know if they yelled walkie-talkie, but somehow she got the memo that a coworker is like, that they needed help. So she goes to help them, and when she gets to the room, there's a man that is unconscious and unresponsive, and his wife is, like, hysterical, like, she's really upset. And there were 2 guests, and there were 2 guests in the room as well. Not, like, I don't think they were with this couple, but there were 2 guests that happened to be nurses that were in the room performing CPR. And they had asked the housekeeper that ran in, they said, can you hold his feet? And I don't know why, but anyway, so they asked her to hold his feet. So she goes to hold his feet, and she said when she looks at him, she sees that he's wearing jeans, a t-shirt, and a baseball hat. And she said that it was the exact same man that she saw walk into 37A a couple weeks before that, like, was not there when she got there. So she just thinks that somehow it was like his spiritual entity or whatever that she had seen. I don't know if he like I don't know. I can't explain this one. This was why I wanted to include this one. But she said that in his physical body was literally dead in front of her in 37A 2 weeks later, and she had seen what she's assuming is his spiritual presence 2 weeks earlier. And I don't know how that would have happened, but anyways, wild. I just thought that was, and could you imagine like being her, like, I'd be like, what is this happening? So there's also a restaurant in the hotel, and I think it's called the Asylum, I want to say is the name of the restaurant. And there's a report of like a lot of the restaurant workers and patrons of the restaurant or guests of the hotel seeing spirit cats. And I didn't know, I like when I was reading it, I thought like spirit cats were a thing, and maybe they are. But the reason that they think there's so many of these spirit cats is because back in the day, this hospital, they used to have cats, a bunch of cats, because, you know, they didn't have quite as much technology as they have now. So cats go into the room, I guess, of somebody who's about to die. And they'll go in and like would curl up at the person's like foot of their bed. And that would be like a clue to the nurses that something was about to happen to that person. So anyways, they had all these spirit cats, or they had, at the time it was regular cats, but I think the cats then died. And then now there's all these spirit cats. So people report seeing cats in pictures. Like they'll take a picture of themselves sitting at the table where they're eating, and there'll be like, in the photo, there's like a cat sitting in the middle of the table. Or people just feeling like the feeling of like a cat like walking up and like brushing against their leg. And then like just photos of like restaurant workers like walking down hallways, and there's cats like walking right next to them. So it sounds like in the restaurant in particular, there's lots of sightings of these spirit cats. Okay, so we've actually hit kind of the end of the story, but I'm going to finish my makeup, and then we'll wrap this up with like the whole finished look, because I feel like it wouldn't be satisfying to just end it right here with my makeup not quite done yet. Here's the finished look. I am wearing a wig, obviously. This is the wig from Cozy Zone. I don't remember the name of it. I will have let me tilt this because this is kind of like an awkward angle. Sorry if we were sitting at a weird angle that whole time. But I will have a TikTok up featuring this wig soon. So anyways, also this feels like it's lifting. Why are you lifting? I am on like the last ounce of lash glue today, so these lashes are trying me. But anywho, let's chat about the end of this. So I basically walked through everything that I had prepared for today. Like I said probably a million times now, highly recommend the book Haunted Jerome. I think it's super helpful. From what I understand, it's like a series. I think there's like you could do like Haunted Boston or Haunted whatever. Like I think they talk about a whole bunch of different haunted places, but Haunted Jerome, really good. Lots of info in there. I want to hear from all of you in the comments on what your thoughts were about this type of video overall, if there's specific places that you'd like to hear me talk about next. I want the next video to be haunted because the palette I plan to use is the haunted palette, but beyond that, I'm down for like alien type things or urban legends or just anything that's of the mysterious, you know? So down for anything. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any story ideas, anything local to you or anything that you've that like you went someplace that was haunted and you have an experience. Would love to take that and then go with, you know, more stories and history behind the things. But that's really what I want this to focus on, is like kind of the history of it, but also kind of the spooky stuff too. Also, let me know what you think. I had to play with the exposure again with this video, so this portion of it might look weird. Anyways, let me know what you think about the lighting in the comments down below as well. And then that is it. If you if you like this type of content, definitely hit that subscribe button because I do want to do more of these. I had so much fun doing the research and filming this. It just was a good time, and I had so much fun just playing with my makeup. I will make sure to link all of the products that I used if I can. because sometimes you run out of characters. So if I can't link it, all of them, I'll list them. I don't think I used anything that I have an affiliate link for today, but if I do have an affiliate link, that will be noted. But yeah, I appreciate you watching this, and I will see you all next time. Bye.